Table salt came around about 1910s at the beginning of the food convenience era. It was convenient that salt didn't clump, but salt's intrinsic value to the body is that it helps it stay hydrated.
How did you get into salt?
So,
Samantha Skyring, the energetic founder and CEO of Oryx Desert Salt. This passionate advocate, speaker, and entrepreneur brings mineral-rich salt from the Kalahari Desert to the world.
if you are hydrated and have enough salt in your body, you get a 20% more output of performance.
Oh, wow.
Which is incredible.
So why does the quality of salt matter?
So I think we've been so indoctrinated and told that salt is bad for us, and yet I don't think anything could be as far from the truth. Salt is on every continent. It's the oldest traded commodity in the world, and as we know, if you don't put salt into your recipe, there's something very bland.
I agree. There's a lot of foods that if you don't put salt on it, it will taste like cardboard. You know?
There are many researchers now that believe that it's because we're not having enough salt that is causing a lot of the issues with health.
So would you say, is that a myth when they're saying that having too much salt is bad for you?
Well,
Welcome to another episode of a Healthy Point of View podcast. I'm your host, Sam Tejada. And as usual, we're bringing experts from all over the world to talk about health, wellness, beauty, and mindset. Today, our guest comes all the way from South Africa. Why? Because we're going to talk about the things that you put into your body. One in particular, we're going to talk about salt. We hear about salt all the time, right? We know about table ionized salt. We know about sea salt. We know about Celtic salt. We know about this Himalayan pink salt. But do you know about Oryx Desert Salt? I don't know much, but today we're going to learn. And today we have the expert, the CEO, the founder of Oryx Desert Salt. We have Samantha Skyring. Samantha, welcome. All right. Yeah. All right. Listen, pleasure to have you here on A Healthy Point of View podcast. This is going to be exciting because, you know, salt is something that's very important, right? Salt is in everything. It's even in the IV bags. When we get, you know, an IV drip, you know, there's sodium chloride in there. And since I was a kid, I only knew one type of salt, and it was the thin table salt, the ionized salt. And when I started talking to you and really understanding more about salt, then I started really realizing, what are we putting into our bodies? So I want to start off with people getting to know who Samantha is. We got two Sams here, by the way. So I want people to get to know who Samantha is and how the heck did you even get into salt?
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure traveling all the way from South Africa to be with you. We've been planning this for a while, so thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely.
And the invitation to share, because I absolutely agree with you. Salt goes into every single recipe, every single meal, and yet we don't think about the source, the quality. We actually just don't think about it at all. So,
Right.
And I would say it's, you know, almost third most important to the body after oxygen and water. We can't survive, we can't thrive, we can't function without salt. So surely we should be delving a little bit deeper into where it's come from, how it's changed, and where we're at now and what the situation is. So thank you.
Absolutely. So how did you get into salt? You know, like I'll tell you what, I can always like tell people how I got into what I do today,
Mhm.
but salt,
Exactly.
you know, let's talk about that.
So my life has been very vast and varied, actually. I once did interior refurbishing of private jets.
Mm.
My life before salt, I had a beautiful NGO called 20,000 Drums, Transformation Through Celebration. So I had a dream and a vision to have 20,000 children from rural communities in a stadium all drumming together.
Oh, wow.
Unfortunately, the event didn't happen, but we workshopped 30,000 children across the country. So I guess I've always had an element of making a difference and, doing something for good. I was 8.5 months pregnant when I introduced a colleague to the father of my child, and I wasn't thinking about new businesses, but he was. And so I supported him to export the salt to another country. And then I left him behind, came back to South Africa as a new single mum with a 3-year-old, and I needed to get my life together. And I'd already created the brand, this beautiful Oryx, as you see here. This is a gazelle that is endemic to the Kalahari Desert of Southern Africa. There is actually a different Oryx, the scimitar Oryx, which is in North Africa, so in the Middle East, actually. So Qatar Airlines, they have the Oryx on their plane. That's their logo. And I had a beautiful 5-month journey in the desert, and I walked 75 miles, 7 days through the Namib, and I had close encounters with the Oryx. So some years later, when I had the opportunity to create a brand of this beautiful salt that comes from the Kalahari, which I'm excited to share where it comes from and what makes it different, the Oryx was what came to mind as the logo.
Amazing. So how long ago was that when you actually started in the salt business?
Yeah, 15 years ago.
15 years.
Started packing grinders on my dining room table. And now we export to about 20 countries, and we're nationally in Whole Foods, World Market, Amazon, Shopify.
Amazing.
And yeah, I have the vision and the mission, because salt's so important, and because of the quality of the salt. For everyone, it needs to be the next global household brand. That's my mission.
Absolutely. So why does the quality of salt matter?
Thank you. So salt needs to have the minerals and trace elements that nature creates and creates in balance. Our oceans are sea salt or are sea water, and so we have predominantly created salt from the oceans. But have we thought about what we've done to the oceans and how clean they are? And the truth is, we haven't been taking care of our planet at all, not only the oceans, the rivers. We've been stripping the earth of its minerals.
Right.
So table salt came around about 1910 at the beginning of the food convenience era. So it was convenient that salt didn't clump, but salt's intrinsic value to the body is that it helps it stay hydrated. And if you were to put a plate of iodized processed salt that's got chemicals in it that stops it from absorbing moisture, so those would be the free flow chemicals and anti-caking agents, versus if you had a plate with Oryx Desert Salt on it, Oryx would absorb moisture, but the processed table salt wouldn't.
Is that why they put like rice inside of it sometimes?
Also as well, that helps, yes, so that helps absorb the moisture. So it was convenient that it didn't clump, but were we really thinking about what the body needs, as opposed to just being convenient? It seems that that's been a thread in Western society to make life convenient, but it has also been at the expense of our health.
So what's in that salt that's so bad?
There's about 20 different aluminum, silicate, potassium carbonate, various chemicals that allow the salt to repel water or not absorb. And yet the minerals and the trace elements in salt, together with the sodium chloride, is like this beautiful special alchemical bond that nature has created. In fact, it's in a similar proportion to our own bodies. And with the minerals and the trace elements and the sodium and chloride, it creates positive and negative charges. And it allows the cells and our hydration, if it's mineral rich, to cross the barrier of our cells into cellular fluid to help us stay hydrated. So if we're actually drinking water that has been stripped of its minerals, it's actually really hard for the body to hydrate. And there's lots of research now that you can flush your kidneys, and drinking more water without minerals can actually dehydrate you and cause problems.
Wow.
So as Dave Asprey, who we met in person first at the biohacking conference, he says the smallest biohack is just put a grind of good quality salt into your water. That creates it into an electrolyte, into mineral-rich water, and then your body can hydrate. We've got a blog, an article on our website that says drink less water and eat more salt. But on this point, I also want to just reiterate, I'm not a doctor. And yet 15 years now of working with salt, having testimonials from people who have switched from the salt that doesn't feed and nourish their bodies to a good quality salt has been quite profound.
Right, right.
So for so many things, an endurance athlete started having more Oryx salt, and she had been struggling with breastfeeding. Suddenly she could breastfeed.
Oh, really? Wow.
I had somebody who was also an endurance athlete. He just cramping and struggling with, the cramps was par for the course for him. And yet when he switched over to Oryx, he stopped cramping. And had somebody else who had been an insomniac for most of his life. And he now takes a teaspoon of salt with some honey every night before bed.
Oh, with honey.
With
Okay,
honey.
nice.
And yeah, there's something around the glucose and the sodium chloride. So it stops the body from spiking and waking up in the middle of the night. But with the salt, and he has a teaspoon in the morning, actually something called Soleil, which is where you put enough salt in a glass jar that the jar is oversaturated and you always have crystals at the bottom. And he takes a tablespoon of that in the morning with lemon water, as I do as well. And once he started that, within a couple of weeks, he was sleeping the night through, and he never had for years. So I think it is for everyone. Each of us is unique. We are
Right.
obviously this American or health stipulation that you need only 5 grams of salt or whatever the recommended daily allowance. How can that be? We're different weights.
Right.
Our muscle fat ratio is different. Our output in exercise is very different. I can tell you do a lot more than what I do. And so our hydration and replenishment of minerals and trace elements is obviously going to be different.
Absolutely. So with some of those testimonials that you're talking about, have you had any testimonials of like adrenal function, how salt has helped with the adrenal glands?
Yeah, absolutely, because it's essential for the kidneys. If we're not having enough salt, and especially mineral-rich water when we're hydrating, it puts stress on the kidneys.
Right.
So it's been an amazing experience actually at especially Dave Asprey's biohacking conference, because so many of the people there have done a lot of research. They're very embodied. They're really taking care of and making conscious choices of the products that they're choosing to consume. And I've had so many people come up who've seen Oryx on shelf, chosen to purchase it and start using it. And they come up and they tell me, I feel so different. So there's people are experiencing the differences without even understanding the quality of Oryx Desert Salt.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have some friends that are professional athletes, and for years they've always been given a lot of these type of power energy drinks, the Gatorade and Powerade, and they've become very health conscientious individuals where they don't want the coloring that's in there, they don't want all the sugar that's in there, and they're trying to find other alternatives. Would this be a good supplement for the electrolytes if they put it in water to give them more energy and hydration?
Absolutely. Apparently, if you are hydrated and have enough salt in your body, you get a 20% more output of performance,
Oh, wow.
which is incredible. So when we're born, we're about 75% water and salt. As we get older, that diminishes to around 65%.
Okay.
And I wonder if that is because we're not hydrating and having enough salt, because I think we've been so indoctrinated and told that salt is bad for us, and yet I don't think anything could be as far from the truth. Salt is on every continent. It's the oldest traded commodity in the world. And as we know, if you don't put salt into your recipe, there's something very bland,
Yeah.
and it's like it's essential, and it's the smallest ingredient in your meal, and it's the smallest ingredient that we consume, but it actually has the biggest impact.
I agree. There's a lot of foods that if you don't put salt on it, it will taste like cardboard. You know,
Exactly.
I'm just saying it how it is. And there's one thing that you mentioned that there's always been this talk about how salt is bad for you. Oh, it causes high blood pressure, it causes cardiovascular issues.
Mm.
And this topic was actually brought up in front of a couple of our doctors last week when we were in Orlando doing a wellness retreat with Noriega.
Mhm.
And Dr. Davis, who's my business partner, he's an interventional cardiologist. He specifically said that that's not true. He said what happens is people that have certain genetics might not be able to process certain things properly. And then, yes, you might have some fluid retention, and there's other things that have to be addressed. But it's not that salt is bad for you. Like, you need salt.
So, in fact, it's interesting that so many of the doctors around patients that are struggling with their heart tell them to lower their sodium, and yet sodium is the most important mineral for the heart.
Right.
Um, so, yeah, there's an incredible researcher, also a cardiac researcher, Dr. James de Nicolantonio, and he's read a book called The Salt Fix, and an absolutely fascinating read. And one comment that he made is that the wrong white crystal got the bad rap. So it's actually sugar that is causing a lot of health problems. And the attention was put onto salt, but it actually isn't the salt. There are many researchers now that believe that it's because we're not having enough salt that is causing a lot of the issues with health.
So, would you say is that a myth when they're saying that having too much salt is bad for you?
Well, we would pee out if we had excess salt. I think it's very hard to eat excess salt.
Right.
um, I would say we're probably mostly walking around dehydrated, and I think we all need to experiment for ourselves. If we're craving salt, is to eat more salt. Um, so the doctors also, I'm sure your colleague would attest to this, but doctors do very few hours of nutrition training in their whole medical university degree. So there seems to have somehow been a disconnect between food as medicine and understanding that it either is medicine or poison.
Right.
And somehow doctors have split the body up into, the brain and the heart and our nervous system, and aren't looking at us as holistic beings. Everything plays into it. Our
Absolutely.
cortisol levels, our stress, our relationships. That either is going to pick up our immune system or drop it. But I think because of this somehow misnomer and myth that salt is bad for us, we have cut back on salt. We are electromagnetic beings. We thrive on, our brain function is a neurochemical that happens and
Right.
requires the conductor of salt. Salt is a conductor. In fact, I saw an excellent little clip the other day where they had a container of water and a gong, and they knocked the gong and put it in the water, and it had a little bit of a reverb. And then they put a bunch of salt into the water and knocked the gong again and put it directly into the container. And the reverberation lasted and was much clearer. And it was the first time I've actually seen it visually, how the salt is a conductor
Right.
for us, in our digestion. Every part of us is actually electric. I think if you've been to a supermarket and you've been pushing a trolley, and you've knocked someone and you've got that little charge,
Right.
or even this morning I was opening my hotel room and I got a charge as I opened the door. So that static, that electricity, if we rub
Right.
our hair, shows that we are electric beings. I mean, there's a lot now around seeing this field, this magnetic
Yeah.
field that we are, and salt is important for our vitality, our vibration, our frequency.
Absolutely. Which I've learned that salt actually you can infuse frequencies into salt, and that it carries. It's a good carrier for frequencies.
I mean, I think everything actually holds frequencies.
Right.
Our thoughts are even frequencies.
Absolutely.
There's a Japanese scientist, he passed, I think, in 2014, Dr. Masaru Emoto, and he did some tests on some water, and he had, let's say, 5 bottles that he put positive words and positive intentions in: faith, trust, hope, love, joy. And then he had 5 other bottles that he put negative words and intentions into: hate, jealousy, anger, guilt, shame. And when he took a drop and froze it and took a photograph, which is called crystallography, he could see that all the positive words have beautiful, unique, very symmetrical, almost like snowflakes.
Oh wow.
And then when he did it on the negative water, there was no shape, no form. And his message to the world was that there are hidden messages in water. So it's a little bit like us saying grace or a blessing over our food.
Yeah.
And that our thoughts are changing the structure of our bodies. And because Oryx Desert Salt is from a very beautiful place, plus it is sun-dried, so it still has 1% of moisture in it.
Okay.
Whereas table salt is oven-dried to very high degrees. It's stripped of all its minerals and trace elements, and it's oven-dried, so it's got no moisture left in it.
Oh wow.
So Oryx comes from this magnificent place in the Kalahari Desert of southern Africa. And they discovered a 55 million ton underground salt lake.
Have you been there?
I have.
You have. Oh,
Very
wow.
special. If you can maybe come to visit us in South Africa, maybe we can arrange a trip.
I got to be able to come back though.
So it's northern South Africa, south of the Botswana border.
Okay.
And it's a 5,000 hectare salt pan, which is about 7 miles by 35 miles. So you wouldn't see somebody standing on the other side. And this underground aquifer, they actually discovered subterranean rivers that replenish and sustain this underground lake. Those rivers flow through rock strata that have been tested at 280 million years old.
Wow.
Then there's 2 almost miracles, phenomenons. One is that when we draw up that salt water onto the salt pan, it has not been touched by human hands. This pan is 175 miles away from any town, and the region is 1.5 times the size of Texas, to give you a sense of scale.
Wow.
So it's a 2.5-hour drive from the town. And then the other miracle is that the brine salt water is oversaturated. And so in summer, at 120 degrees Fahrenheit, it crystallizes in only 4 weeks. So in one lunar cycle, it goes through a dark moon, a full moon, under the stars, the desert wind, and it crystallizes. So because it's got the moisture, those beautiful elements in the desert, the spaciousness, the remoteness, is actually captured in the salt.
Oh wow. So do
and-
people like go out there and do you see a bunch of people when it's all dried up collecting it, or?
No, so the salt pan is on a private farm, so
okay.
it's not accessible to the public.
Okay.
So we need to arrange, because of where it's situated from the main road, they had to build a 7-mile road through 5 farms. So, but I went up a couple of years ago to do a documentary. I really
Okay.
wanted to capture the beauty
Yeah, of
and
course.
how spacious it is, and the fact that it doesn't come from the ocean. And while I was there, well, there were 5 of us, we were gifted a Kalahari thunderstorm, which was just epic proportions of lightning and the most incredible rainfall that came
Oh
down.
wow.
And it lasted 20 minutes. And once it passed, I went outside. It's always beautiful to be in nature after a thunderstorm. The earth smelt. It was, fresh and damp. And then I walked around to the back of the chalet, and there were double rainbows. And that was where the salt pans were. I couldn't see them because they were behind the sand dunes. But I, kind of in my mind witnessed these double rainbows sitting over the salt pan. And that was where I really had the almost, an experience of how and feeling and seeing the salt lying in this beautiful
Wow.
place, absorbing the magic of nature.
That's amazing.
It was
Now
very
I kind of want to get on an
special.
airplane and go check that thing out. That sounds really amazing. Have you ever seen now in today's day and age that there's a lot of these spas that have salt rooms? Have you seen what kind of salt are they using in these salt rooms? Because there's a lot of benefits and a lot of relaxation, detoxification, all of that stuff that people get from being inside of these salt rooms. Would this be a type of salt for that?
It would, except because it comes from this underground lake, it's actually this living aquifer, so it's alive, it's moving through, under the earth. Whereas the salt spas and the salt rooms, they're using Himalayan salt. So Himalayan I think, has been such an incredible, important part of humanity waking up to the importance of salt because it's pink. I think all of us ladies loved it. Oh, look at that. That's so pretty. Let's have that on the table. And what's fascinating is that it almost went viral pre the internet. It was, it is a mineral-rich salt, and that was its marketing, caption. And I believe that it came around for us to switch off from table salt.
From table salt. Now, is there a difference between Himalayan pink salt versus the white sea salt?
So Himalayan salt comes not from the Himalayas. It's about 200 kilometers, I think, east of the Himalayas in Pakistan.
Okay.
And it was discovered because in the treks, through the desert, probably transporting salt, the horses started licking the rocks. This is many years ago, and then they realized that these rocks were salty, was salt rocks.
Oh, wow.
And then they started chopping it out and discovered this beautiful ancient solidified ocean that is pink. It has that pink hue.
Right.
But because of the global demand, it's now dynamited out.
Oh, really?
And it's not a renewable, sustainable source. So at some point, it could be 50, 100, 500, I don't know how many years. But at some point, it won't. If we're still on the planet in 100 and 500 years, the rate we're going, probably not. So we're damaging our environment.
Who knows?
But
Well, some people say we might live until we're like 200. So
possibly, if we take care of ourselves and choose the right quality salt.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, of course, because the oceans are made up of seawater, it's always been so accessible for us to create salt from the oceans. But now the oceans are polluted with plastic. The cruise liners alone dump 1 billion tons of sewage into the oceans every single year.
Right.
There's pharmaceutical contamination. You think of 360 million Americans. How many of them are not on a prescription drug? Some of which we pee out, ends up in the oceans. In fact, a marine biologist that I met at Dave's biohacking conference tested some oysters and discovered opioids and contraceptives.
Oh, my God.
So the oysters and mussels are the filters of the ocean. I still enjoy oysters occasionally. I eat them with a slightly different view, but we've really done damage. There are now these big islands of plastic, and all of the plastic in the ocean,
Right.
breaks down into these microbeads. And so when you're drawing up ocean water to make sea salt, whatever's in that water, depending on I get Icelandic, the oceans in Iceland would be much cleaner than oceans around Europe. Even though the oceans are a moving body of water, nothing stays and is isolated. But obviously, bodies of water that have a lot of movement and cruise liners and
Right.
so on would be more polluted.
Yeah.
So to just really understand and research, I think the important thing is to do our research.
Absolutely.
Look at what salt has been your preference or what is in the oceans and where it comes from, and to just dive a little bit deeper.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we talked about the pink Himalayan salt. We talked about sea salt, and we talked about table salt, Celtic salt. Where does Celtic salt come from, and how does it compare to your salt?
The Celtic brand was started in about 1970 by a naturopath, Jacques Delarange. and he totally understood how important salt is for the body, and salt with minerals in it. So he created a movement around switching people off table salt onto sea salt. And they did an amazing. It became a passion. So they were sourcing salt from various places. Always ensuring that the source is clean. Ensuring these different sources. My understanding is that Celtic comes from Brittany in France, and it is ocean water. So I think there needs to be more research done into the quality
Okay.
of Celtic or Celtic. I'm not quite sure the exact pronunciation.
Yeah.
So yeah, Celtic has been around for 50 years, and there are different sources. So I think it's just again important to check where it's coming from and what is the source.
Absolutely. So we were talking about the Kalahari Desert,
Yes.
right? I've never been, right? Now, what makes the Kalahari Desert so special? What else is in this desert?
So I think the fact that there's no fresh water. So at the chalet that I stay at when I visit the salt pan, they truck their fresh water 175 miles. So the areas are
Wow.
uninhabited, or fairly uninhabitable, unless you go truck your water in.
Right. That's
So
crazy.
there isn't even air pollution, and the 2.5 hour, in fact, from Cape Town to the salt pan is around 18-hour drive. From the closest town, it's 2.5 hours. And there's nothing but this most beautiful red sand and sky. So there's something just about the purity, the untouchedness of it.
Right.
Humans haven't got in there and, done
Right.
damage
Yeah,
or,
yeah, no, I get it.
tainted it, or because obviously most towns are surrounding fresh water. There has to be access to fresh water.
Right.
And this whole region is actually quite salt dense. There are places where there's lots of gold, or there's silver, or there's platinum. This particular area has a lot of salt. And yet, what I find fascinating is that salt is available in every country, on every continent around the world. So we're in a similar proportion to the oceans. And it's so essential for our health, nature, God, however the planet and we came about. It was essential that salt was available. I guess the places that it wasn't, it was traded. In fact, 1,000 years ago, salt was worth its weight in gold. So they understood then how important it was as a preservative. People laugh that salt has an expiry date, and because of food safety, we need to put that on.
Right.
And yet, salt definitely doesn't have an expiry date. But 1,000 years ago, that little 50 grams of salt in that bottle would have been worth 50 grams of gold.
Wow.
And so it's curious, actually, that why salt is so cheap nowadays. Why is table salt so inexpensive? And I think it is because it has no value to the body. Otherwise, so Himalayan salt should be 10 times the price that it is. Oryx should be 10 times the price. It's from this one unique source. But because it is created in such a vast volume, so table salt is actually industrial salt. They use it for paint and plastic, textiles, paper. And that's why they need to put the anti-caking.
What kind of salt do they use when the roads get icy? And the trucks come and they put salt on the roads?
So I guess that would be a sea salt.
Maybe like a sea salt.
There are different variations of quality, but salt is created in such incredible volumes. I don't know where that source would be, but it would be the...
They bring a lot of it up north, I'll tell you that.
A lot, I'm sure they do.
It destroys our cars too, and they get all rusty and stuff because of that salt.
Okay, interesting.
So, one of the things that we're very big on at Liquavita, and also a healthy point of view is being able to support all of our different communities that are out here, right? And there's a underserved community in different pockets here in the United States that also need healthy living, right?
Mm,
Especially when we're talking about making America healthy again.
mm.
One of the things that you said earlier is that the salt is sold at Whole Foods, right? I have friends that because I shop at Whole Foods that they'll make fun of me and says, "Oh, you're shopping at Whole Paycheck,"
Mhm.
right? So let's talk about how the price of the salt compares to like table salt.
So, in Whole Foods, our salt is priced similar to a Himalayan salt, for
Okay,
example. Um, it is more expensive than the sea salt.
right.
So Whole Foods has been the one supermarket that has the buyer that I contacted 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, understood that Whole Foods they have been forerunners in good quality organic natural products and understood the importance of offering their conscious consumers a a new category of salt, which is desert salt. Um, it's expensive to get into retailers in the USA.
Yeah.
There's free fill, there's listing fees, there's promotion. We're still a small company and a small brand in South Africa. Um, and just you mentioned, supporting communities. Oryx started with me packing grinders on my dining room table. I now have a team of 50, and they come from very disadvantaged, very dysfunctional, no income to low income communities. I would say each person that gets employed by Oryx feeds between 5 and 10 people.
Oh wow.
Um, and I love really making a difference in their lives. So last year they did a parenting course.
Oh
This
nice.
this year they did a self-defense course because their communities aren't safe. And so just to give them a little bit more awareness and a few tactics
A
and
little karate,
techniques.
a little kung fu. Yeah, I like it.
It was a mixed martial artist, a woman who had been physically abused that came in and did a 6-week program with the team. And somebody actually had a moment where they used one of the tools that they had learned. So that was pretty
Oh
amazing.
wow.
Plus, we give a percentage back to the first people of the Kalahari Desert. So a donation of sales goes to the Kalahari as well as to another project called Project Biome in South Africa, Regenerative Farm. So all the sales in America make a difference in South Africa, which I believe is
Amazing.
essential because
Yeah,
they're the
yeah, I love that.
custodians. South Africa is the steward of this beautiful salt. Um, but the salt is also available on Amazon, and I understand some people don't want to shop at Amazon because they definitely make a whole lot more money than we make off our products. We do have it wholesale on a Shopify site on our website. Um, so a community could, some families could get together, buy a box of 6 salt grinders and 6 refills, get it for wholesale, and then share it. So almost like mini co-ops.
Yeah, and that's an amazing thing that you have as well too. It's you don't have to buy it with the grinder every single time. You could buy it with you buy it once and then you get the refill, which is less expensive, right? And
Exactly.
then refill it, which
Exactly.
you really don't find that with many of these other salt companies.
So we've been trailblazing. So our grinder has whoops, there's a lot of salt there. Has a ceramic mechanism, and so you can buy this grinder once and refill it. I had a chef reach out to me the other day and say that she was throwing her grinders away after 7 years of use.
Oh wow.
So
Okay, 7 years.
imagine buying something for $6.99 and it lasting you even 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. That's really good value for
Yeah,
money.
yeah, absolutely.
And yes, then the large grinders, the large refills, refill the grinder 2.5 times. We are actually on promotion in Whole Foods for the next 2.5 weeks, but I'm not sure when this is going to be published, so that might not
Yeah.
be relevant. And then we have these beautiful little travel shakers, which are available in all World Market stores, Cost Plus World Market. And I've become a complete salt snob, obviously. So I take my salt everywhere that I go, and I'm happy that yourself and your team get these as well. Because if I'm on a plane and I decide to have a meal, or if I'm at a restaurant and they've got sea salt, I like to know that I'm putting the best quality salt on my food every
Absolutely.
time.
Yeah, yeah. So Right now we have the Make America Healthy Again movement, the MAHA movement. Have you been following it
I
closely?
have.
From South
Amazing.
America,
I think it's
from South Africa.
it's very
Yeah.
exciting.
So people worldwide are seeing what's happening with RFK Jr. Making a lot of these changes. What do you think about it?
It's essential. I think we've so got away from being healthy, making conscious choices. The fact that probably 5-10% of food in the supermarket is actually real food. The rest of it's a bunch of chemicals.
Right.
So the movement, I think, is also a time for just creating more awareness. We've got so many incredible people like yourself.
Thank you.
Sharing with people around quality products. I think COVID was a blessing. If we can have a look at the positive of everything that happens.
Yeah.
People are making choices now not to get sick and to stay healthy. And in order to do that, we need to be label checking. We need to be seeing what ingredients are in every product. So this movement is just this beautiful collective of people who've done the research, who understand the body from a different perspective of, let's say, how the doctors have been looking at us. Interestingly, in ancient Chinese times, you would pay your Chinese doctor to keep you healthy. But when you got sick, you stopped paying them. So we need to get to a place where we are well and occasionally get sick, as opposed to getting to a place where, the high percentage of comorbidity and diabetes and we're in a place now that we've never been on the planet in terms of not being well, healthy, optimum, and healthy.
Yeah, there's a lot of sick people that just
too many.
And the unfortunate thing, and I say how it is, it's some of the bigger bodies that are out there want to keep people sick as well too. So it's very important for us to become aware and educate ourselves, not be dependent on someone else educating us, so we can kind of break that chain effect that's happening where they just want to keep people sick. So there's a lot of things that we could do personally to avoid ourselves from going into these chronic illnesses. And obviously having good quality product is part of it. When it comes to health and wellness, daily habits, what is a few that are non-negotiable for you that you have to do every single day?
So meditation and breath work. In fact, I started on a supplement, an expensive supplement, a year ago, and then I needed to replace it. And I had a good, strong talk to myself. I was like, no, you're not going to go and spend money on an expensive supplement if you are not doing the basics. You're not spending half an hour in the morning quietly in stillness, connecting with my heart, connecting with my soul, connecting with God. And if, until I'm doing that, until I'm using my breath, which is a free tool, which is what we use every single day, every moment, every 3 seconds, probably. I don't know how many breaths we have in a 24-hour period, but most of us are shallow breathing because we're stressed out. So I've really learned to use my breath as a tool. Business is stressful, having 50 staff members, growing my business, the cash flow, getting into new supermarkets, growing into different countries. There's a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And I need to take the time to breathe properly. I'm sure you're aware that your longer out breath gives your nervous system the message that everything is okay. So just remembering to come back to the body, come back to my heart. And then first thing in the morning, I have a drink with lemon water, a half squeezed lemon, and then the Soleil that I mentioned, this fully saturated, very mineralized water. A tablespoon of that with lemon, a little dash of apple cider vinegar, and then that feels like that sets me up for the day. I should actually be having that more often, but of course, once I leave the house, then it's the coffee, and then it's, on the run. Try and just be mindful again of choosing a salad as opposed to choosing gluten.
Right.
Definitely need to do more exercise and more training. Although we have beautiful mountains in Cape Town that are right next to the
You
ocean.
can go hiking, right?
So every Friday morning I do a hike. It's about 200 meters elevation.
Okay.
With a group of beautiful people. It's a networking group, and we meet there at 5 to 6 in the morning, whether it's sunshine, cold, dark,
Amazing.
or rainy. It's about a very good hour and a half up, and an hour down, and we have coffee at the top and a lovely time to
I love
meet
that.
new people and chat.
I love that. So Samantha, this question here, try not to answer it in a biased way, right? Which it might be easy for you to be a little biased on this one, but one salt habit that consumers should change.
A salt habit that consumers should change. I would say ditch the table salt. And
Ditch the table salt.
Ditch the table salt. It is demineralized. It has chemicals in it. In fact, it has even sugar in it to mask the flavor and the bitterness of anti-caking agents.
Wow.
So using a mineral-rich salt, whether you choose Oryx or you choose a quality sea salt that you've done some research on, having that versus a refined processed salt is already going to make a difference. And to not be scared of salt. I think often we have a craving for salty things. That doesn't mean go grab that packet of heavily salted crisps.
Right.
Have water, put some salt in it. Often when we feel that we're hungry, we're usually thirsty, usually dehydrated. So just not to be scared of the salt.
Oh, I'm not scared. Are we going to try this thing or what?
Absolutely.
Let's do it. I want everybody to try it. Even the guys behind the scenes are going to try it today.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to ask you for a tequila first because we did shake hands earlier, and just that's a cleaner part of the hand.
So what do I do? I just lick it?
You can lick it just like you do with a
Come on,
tequila.
I want the other guys to try this thing here too. You know, I can't be the only one with taking the salt.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting.
All right, lick it a little bit there.
Okay, so and then I'm going to ask you to put your hand next to the mic that you can hear this smooth ceramic grinder. It's not, we're going to need to do a bit of a, there we go.
And then just eat it?
And just have a lick.
Wow. That's heavy duty.
Okay, salty, right?
I needed that. Now, you guys have a pepper too.
We do have peppers from small-scale farmers in Madagascar. Okay, so brush that off. Or for me, you can put it on my skirt. I'll dump it outside.
No, I'm good. I'm gonna finish it.
Yeah, eat it.
Okay, but now I'm going to give you sea salt.
That's not Jamaican jerk, man.
We're not finished with the experiment yet.
Okay, come on.
Okay.
So what is that one?
This is sea salt.
All right,
I'm going to hide the bottle because I don't want to show the brand, but you can do this with any sea salt. Okay. There we go. And I'm going to do it in front of the mic and hear that cranky grinder, which is grinding
Yeah,
plastic.
it definitely tastes significantly
Really
different.
No? Isn't that
Really
interesting?
different. Wow.
I think I just ate plastic.
Sorry, I have an apology about that. So Oryx
Grab the mic. Yeah, there you go.
Oryx opens up all of the taste buds. It's like a flavor enhancer. It seems to open up the palate. And that's actually why they put salt into chocolate, because it does open the palate. But there is this difference, as 3 out of 3 of you attested. Sea salt seems to be quite bitter and sharp. It opens salt bitter and sharp in the taste buds, whereas Oryx seems to open the full palate.
Okay.
So it actually makes your food taste more flavorful.
Amazing. That was really good. I can't wait to actually cook with it.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Samantha, so I want to do something here. So I watch and I follow and watch a very popular podcast called The Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett. And he just came out with these cool conversation cards.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to have you open it up, and then you're going to grab two cards, and you're going to answer the questions on the cards.
Oh, how
All right?
interesting. Okay. Let's do a little shuffle.
Shuffle it up. All right.
Yeah, a couple that might want to jump out. Take that one and that one. Okay. Huh. So the first question is, what is your biggest regret? And if you could go back, what would you do differently?
Talk to me.
Okay. So in some way, it's a hard question because I love where I am now in my life. And if I hadn't have been through the things, one of which was a very, very unhealthy, very unsafe marriage and relationship for many years, if that didn't happen, if that was safe and financially secure, Oryx wouldn't be on Whole Foods shelves. I wouldn't be as passionate. I wouldn't be doing what I am today.
Right.
So I did kayaking adventures on this most incredible island. And the way I handled it then at 22, essentially not standing up for myself and digging my heels in the sand and saying, bugger you, if you want me out, you leave. Because it was absolutely the most beautiful place on Lake Malawi.
Mm.
But 20 years later, when the first person that I was buying the salt from wanted to give the right to somebody else, I suddenly found that conviction where I was like, I am going to sell the salt. I'm born for this. I want to do this. I believe in this, and I'm
Right.
going to do this. Let's find a new way. And that was when he actually told me to find a new brand. I was selling it under the Kalahari Salt brand, and then I created the Oryx Desert Salt brand. So a regret that I lost this beautiful island and actually my partner then, because we didn't survive losing this magical place we were living in together. We were living in paradise and we lost paradise. But sometimes these things happen for our soul to have a different journey.
Right.
So I think as a mum, I think all of us parents could have regrets of potentially not being more present, doing things slightly differently. Definitely not going to have another child, but I know I would do it differently. Okay, second question. What is the one belief or behavior that has positively impacted your life in the past 12 months? Amazing. Jim Quick. Hello, Jim. So the same answer in two different ways. Trust my soul and trust the soul of my child. My son is nearly 18. He is institutionally adverse. I managed to find the courage 4 years ago to tell him that he didn't need to do school because he was making himself sick. And I'd heard somebody, I went to a talk when he was 7, and the only thing that landed was trust the soul of your child. And my son didn't want to be spending time with kids who were vaping and smoking weed and drinking. And I actually had to honor him for having such strong conviction
Amazing.
at 15.
Yeah.
But it was hard. But having that voice, trust the soul of your child. He's come in here. His soul is much bigger than me as a parent. And then the last 12 months has also been an interesting journey of valuing me and my own business. I have shareholders as well. and understanding my value. And I've had to really step up and show up and value and speak my truth.
Right.
And it's been really challenging. I'm not a corporate person, um, and but I trust the soul of Oryx. I trust the soul of my soul. When I had the first encounter with these beautiful Oryx gazelle, I was sitting on a sand dune, and two Oryx ran up the sand dune and skidded to a stop. I was sitting in their path, and I was sitting in, it was like 3 million hectares of land, and yet I was sitting in their path. So choosing the Oryx for the salt really has become like an omen and a kind of, for me, it does feel like my soul path, sharing this beautiful product with the world.
Amazing.
So even when things get really challenging, kind of I drop into my heart, I connect, and I trust that my soul is curating whatever I need. Can't do this on my own.
Right.
I feel like there's so much more support.
It definitely is.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. Samantha, as we wrap up here, if there is one listener or viewer on this podcast that really resonates with today's message, what is one thing you can leave them off with?
Well, thank you, Jim. I think trust your soul. Like the entrepreneurs and the founders, it's hard. It takes so much courage. Value your courage. Value your bravery for stepping out and doing something that's unfamiliar. But also know that you chose that, and so did your soul. So surrender more into the trust, and into faith.
I love that. Samantha, if people want to find you, where can they find you?
Thank you. So Oryx Desert Salt, Oryx Desert with one S. LinkedIn, Samantha Skyring, Skyring. I love sharing my journey. I love supporting founders, empowering founders, just sharing my journey along the way. Obviously on Instagram, and if you want the product, Whole Foods, Shopify, our website, and on Amazon.
Amazing. Samantha, it was a pleasure having you here on a Healthy Point of View podcast.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate
Awesome.
you too.
Guys, you heard it from Samantha. You got to understand what you're putting in your body. It might taste good, but you could be putting poison inside of your body. Who knows what some of these table salts have? Make sure you're taking the right salt. Understand the power of salt. What salt can do for your body, the electrolytes, energy, mental focus, clarity, sleep, all of these things come from having good hydration, which having good hydration is related to making sure you have good mineral content. All right, guys. So make sure you share this podcast, subscribe, like, do all that fun stuff, and we'll see you for the next one.